This is what they call a box newel staircase railing. That word box newel comes from this end piece here. A newel is the end of a railing, and this is a box newel because it's made like a box. I like it because of the way it looks, and also because it's extremely solid. Something this wide just doesn't move. This railing is rock solid. What I want to show you now is an interesting technique. I don't often see it used, and you'll find it in the panels that were used for this box newel staircase. And you can see what's going on inside here. I'll just take the cap off. You'll see that the outer frame is made of pieces of solid wood. The panels are just glued on the inside face. And if you look closely, you can see that they're mostly made of plywood with some solid wood glued to the visible face, about 1/4 of an inch thick. So why would I bother doing this? Well, I could have just gone with veneered plywood, but the factory veneer on this stuff is very, very thin. I also wanted to match the, in this case, the ash of the box newel with the panel that you see here. And so I wanted the wood to be the same, but I also wanted to have creative control over the appearance of the grain. You see how the grain pattern here is a mirror image from one side to the other. This is called book matching, and I actually cut these pieces of wood out from real lumber, from the same batch that I made the completely solid wood parts. Glued them into panels, and then glued those panels to the plywood backing, which then become part of the box newel. I want to show you that in a little more detail because it's a powerful technique. You end up with a stable panel. The plywood gives stability, but you also get complete control over the grain in a solid wood thickness that's not going to let you down like some thin veneers do. So I call it shop cut veneer panels, and let's go and take a look and see what they look like. I'm working on another set of box newel staircases now, so you can see it all in action. So the box newels I'm making now are cherry, not ash, and this is what one of the panels looks like. It's made in this case of 2 pieces of wood. I've edge glued them together, just like I would a regular solid wood panel. And this is some of the plywood backing that I'm going to glue these things to. The stuff that you saw previously was 1/2 inch. This is 3/4. It doesn't really matter. I just happen to have some 3/4 around. And they just get glued together in pairs, as you'll see in a minute, because that way the plywood provides even pressure across the veneer all at the same time. So you can just use regular wood glue for this. This is a brownish sort of wood glue that I use. It's exceptionally strong. I buy this stuff from Lee Valley Tools. There's lots of great wood glues around nowadays. You want to have enough for full coverage without a whole lot of squeeze out. So you don't have to get fancy. I just have a piece of scrap cardboard here to spread it around. At this stage, you'll see areas that need a little bit more juice. Now, one thing to keep in mind with something like this is that the center of the veneer should be the center of the panel. It doesn't matter so much with this one because there's not a lot of prominent mirror image grain patterns, but I will show you some others where it is more prominent. So what I do is just mark the center line of the panel. It's hard to see because the joint is tight, but I just mark the center of the panel, and then in the same way the plywood backing is also marked in the center. The thing about gluing joints like this is that glue is a lot like grease. If I were just to try clamping this, the panel would slip around and I would never get proper alignment. So to avoid that problem, I use a pin nailer. These panels are longer than they need to be right now. So I can afford to shoot a pin, a 23 gauge pin. They're actually very fine, as you can see. They're about the diameter of sewing needles. They don't have a head, but they're great for holding parts in alignment under clamping pressure. They're good for other things too, but that's how I'm using the pins right now. Align first one end and then the other. So that's certainly not holding the wood, the veneer, down properly, but you can see it doesn't move anymore. So the next step, I've already glued this one. The next step is to put them face to face and then get some of these wooden hand screws. I like these for this application because it applies pressure over a very wide surface. And you can also control the jaws independently of each other, so that you can adjust the angle so that you have full contact across the full width of the piece. So put a lot of clamps on here because I want a complete bond. That's very important, no gaps. When you're using hand screws like this, the handle that's furthest away from the tip of the clamps applies much more force than the one in the middle, because you have the leverage of the length of the jaws in your favor. So what I like to do is make the jaws tight here, not too tight, but just snug here, and then adjust this handle so that the front end of the jaws come together. And what we're looking for is a nice even squeeze out here on this side. Let's see what it looks like underneath. There's a few gaps here. I'm going to end up putting clamps on both sides all the way along these pieces, and that's going to do a good job for us. Just before I finish up, take a look at this here. This is a panel that's come out of the clamps, and you can see the mirror image grain pattern there. There are other examples of it too. Right now, at this stage, the solid cherry is wider than the plywood. And if you remember, the edges of this assembly need to be cut at a 45-degree angle so that the 4 panels can fit inside the box newel. That'll all come later. But this is basically a shop-cut veneer panel. It's stable, and yet it offers the advantage of having control over the wood grain, and really a substantial amount of wood here that I think looks quite nice. Thanks for watching. Click here to join the thousands of people who get the Bailey Line Road hands-on how-to newsletter for free every Saturday morning.